Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comre podcast series, Healing with Coherence, founded by Radiant Life Technologies. My name is Mikhail Tsvetanov and I am your host today. This is episode 5 of this series, delving into the profound transformation of healing science, medicine and technology happening in the world today. You can find us on all major podcast platforms and social media networks. So if you are not yet part of our community, hit subscribe or follow right now and don't miss anything that we are planning to continue sharing with you. My guest today is Dr. Bernard Brom from South Africa. Hello, Bernard, and welcome to the Healing with Coherence podcast.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Look forward to this conversation.
Yeah, me too. I'm really curious to ask you all the questions that I've outlined in my script. You have a tremendously interesting story behind you, so I'm looking forward to our discussion. And before we embark on the journey through your story, Bernard, I would like to introduce you to our listeners today. So for those who do not know Dr. Brom, Dr. Bernard Brom is an integrative doctor, functional medicine doctor, holistic doctor, healthy medicine doctor, but he's also an artist and alchemist of medicine. And we'll be investigating into what all these different functions that Bernard has are, what they cover in medicine. Bernard has dedicated his work to understanding how healing works, why we become ill, and how to manage the complexity of this process. He was qualified as a medical doctor in 1965, but while he specialized in gastroenterology, he became dissatisfied with medicine and with his lifestyle at that time. And he gave up on studying further medicine and traveled around the world in a Volkswagen Combi for almost 6 years. He then returned to South Africa and started an integrative medical practice. And what we'll be talking today with Dr. Brom is mainly what caused his dissatisfaction with medicine, what led him to embarking on the path of integrative and holistic medicine, and what has been his journey since then. We'll be also talking about Bernard's book, Healthy Medicine, the philosophy and principles of nature medicine. And I'm also very curious to ask Dr. Brom specifically about his vast experience in using low-level laser therapy in his practice, and especially about his results in treating acute and chronic pain. Bernard, welcome again. There are so many things that your introduction actually cannot even cover that I could read about you. But one thing that caught my attention specifically is the name of your book, Healthy Medicine. And I was wondering, could actually medicine be unhealthy? Isn't that a contradictory kind of expression, healthy medicine?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Interesting question. You know, have you ever heard of the word iatrogenic disease?
I might, but I'm not really sure what I should...
Iatrogenic disease is the fourth most common cause of ill health and death. And some people have pushed it up to the third most common cause. And I've seen a paper on that it's the most common cause of ill health and death. Iatrogenic disease is illnesses caused by medical doctors and the medical profession, and it's by practicing medicine in the conventional way that's dangerous. Dangerous enough to be recognized as the fourth most common cause of ill health and death. That means that, and what's it due to? Drugs, due to surgery, due to investigation and management in hospitals, you know. So it's a very, very common cause. I mean, the most common cause is heart disease, and then we have cancer. And the fourth most common cause is doctor-induced diseases. And there's also, of course, the so-called placebo and the opposite of placebo, which is nocebo. So the placebo is good effect of sugar-coated pills, but also the environment in which the medical practice is happening. The nocebo is its opposite, is the bad effect of bad communication, of an environment that is not conducive to healing. So yeah, there is such a thing as healthy medicine, and there is such a thing as really bad medicine.
Okay, well, I would like really to delve deeper into understanding the difference between healthy and unhealthy medicine. Before we go there, I think partially you described now what actually led you to feeling dissatisfied with the way medicine worked back then when you studied medicine, and then you ran away from medicine for 6 years. But can you explain a little bit more actually? What were your feelings and perceptions at that time? What you saw that pulled you off, repulsed you from medicine?
Nothing major. All I can tell you is I was unhappy. But the story actually started long before then, because when I was about, I guess I must have been about 12, my parents bought me a microscope. And when I looked down that microscope for the first time as a little boy of 12 years old, I was totally astonished. Suddenly, I saw a world that with my ordinary eyes I couldn't see. I looked at a fly, and the fly's wings were so astonishingly beautiful. And the eyes of the fly was looking at me. And I thought, gee, there's so much I don't even see. I can't even see. And I got so excited, I started to look at everything around me. And that started me on a journey, because I knew then that the world I was seeing was only partial, that my eyes limited me, that my ears limited me. All my senses didn't give me a real perception of the world, that the world was much more interesting than I thought. So when I finished school, it's not that I was interested in practicing medicine in order to save people, not at all. I went to a person that was interested in helping children developing what they'd be interested in, and when she did her questionnaires, she said to me, you're a scientist, and if you're going to do a BSc, a science degree, you must know that if you're not brilliant, you're going to end up cleaning test tubes. So why don't you rather do medicine, she said, because there you can be in charge of your own research. And so that's why I did medicine. It wasn't at all to be a doctor in that sense. I wanted to do research. I wanted to find out what's really going on in the world out there. One other thing that really made an enormous difference to me, when I was still at school, when I must have been about 15 or 16, Max Colley came to the school. He was a hypnotist.
Okay.
And he was one of these kind of hypnotists that went on stage and got volunteers to come up. And this one person, he was the father of one of my friends. He was a really uninteresting guy. He was a big, fat slob of a man that I never paid much attention to. But he went up onto the stage, and Max Colley hypnotized him and gave him a broom and said, "This broom is the most beautiful woman you've ever seen. Dance with her." And this fat man grabbed hold of this broom and danced across the stage in such a way that it changed all my perception of that man. Suddenly, I thought, even human beings, I'm not even seeing the fullness of who they are. They're hiding something. A human being is hiding something. Under hypnosis, he was transformed into another kind of person. So those two things, the microscope and hypnosis, helped me to realize that there's something going on in the world that I couldn't see, that I wasn't seeing. And I was determined to find out. It woke me up. So that was the reason why I started medicine, was really to try and see, somehow medicine allowed me to get into the body and find out what's going on there. There must be something inside there, I thought, that can give me answers. And so it was interesting to me to start medicine. And why I eventually gave up medicine was, well, I'd gone to America to specialize further. I was doing gastroenterology and decided to specialize further, went to America. And I had a choice of going to America or going to England. I chose America because they said in America you can live your dream. I thought, okay, I'm 30 years old. I want to live my dream. I was 29, actually. I want to live my dream. I bought a Mustang the moment I got to America. I had a boat. There was parties going on. I was in Miami. There was air hostesses around me where I was. So I was having a really super time. And within 6 months, I'd lived my dream and I still was unhappy. And I thought, what's going on here? I've lived my dream. Everything I thought that would make me happy, I'm still unhappy. Something's terribly wrong. And that was when I decided to give up medicine. I decided that I needed to get up medicine and start to travel the world and find out what's going on. There's something out there in the world that I don't understand. I saw this man under hypnosis, microscopes. I lived my dream and I was still unhappy. And I thought, no, something else is going on here. I need to. And so that's why I actually gave up medicine. It wasn't because of any grand ideas. I just thought, I'm finished with it. I don't like what I'm doing. I didn't like working in a laboratory. I didn't like working in a hospital practice. So, yeah. So somebody said to me one morning, we need to, he was associate professor of pharmacology at the time. He said, we should give up our jobs. We're intelligent enough to make a living. We're in Miami. There are lots of islands out there. We can find an island to go live on. Let's do it. I said, what a brilliant idea. The next day, I walked into my boss's office and said, I'm giving up medicine. This guy that was going to give up medicine with me, he became a professor of pharmacology. He never gave up. So that's how I actually gave up medicine, and I gave up planning never to go back.
Okay.
Became an artist and did sculpture, and eventually went to Europe and traveled around Europe, and then to Sri Lanka, and then to India to find my teacher because I was still unhappy. And I thought everybody, all the hippies were going to India to find answers. So I needed to find an answer. So I went to India and found my guru and spent almost a year with him. Yep, spent a year with him.
Okay. Well, was that the moment? Actually, because when you came back then home, you founded an integrative medicine practice. So it means that something has led you back to medicine, but you decided to go for a different kind of medicine or a different approach in medicine. What was that?
When I came back to South Africa after 6 years, I came back because my girlfriend was pregnant and we decided to have our family in South Africa. So I still wasn't practicing medicine. I started a commune. I invited a few people and we had a farm, a piece of land, and we started to farm. But I realized very quickly that hippies don't make money.
Okay.
So I decided, okay, I'm going to go back into medicine, but I'm going to do it differently. So after 6 years of not being in touch with medicine, I made a few quick decisions, because the first one that I made was when I had to relearn about drugs. And when I looked at the drugs and the side effects, I thought, hang on, something's going on here. I never realized that drugs have serious side effects. You practice medicine, you're handing out drugs all the time, but I realized that there aren't effects and side effects. That's a game that doctors play. There are only side effects. You're using a drug for one of its side effects. Not clear. Is that making sense, what I'm saying here? You're using a drug for one of its side effects, not for, you could say they're all effects or they're all side effects. It doesn't make any difference. But if you say they're all side effects, it's very clear what we're talking about.
So you mean that all the effects of the chemical that is used in the drug are basically side effects, and some of them are considered to be helpful, but most of them are basically harmful.
They're all side effects, and if you take enough of it, you die. They're all chemicals, and the purpose of the chemical is to block a physiological process. And you can hear the names: antihistamine, serotonin uptake inhibitors, beta blockers. That's what they do. They interfere with the function.
Yes.
And therefore, because they interfere with the function, they make the body more dysfunctional. The fact that the body can manage, even though it's got all these interference factors, the body still manages to find a way to function is amazing. And it shows you how creative the body is. Because if you take in an antihistamine and the body can no longer produce histamine, well, the body's got to find a way to deal with that, because there's a good reason why it does that. So the problem we have around ill health is that we think that ill health is something bad. Well, of course it is something bad, but it's what the body's doing. It's the best the body can do under the circumstances because there's so many interference factors. So the first decision I made, and we'll come to that because it's an important statement that I've just made.
Yes.
The first decision I made was that how can I, as a doctor, with my ethics around medicine and healing, how can I give a patient a poison? Or let's not call it a poison. My wife gets upset when I use the names of poisons for drugs. For using a chemical that interferes with function. How can I ethically actually use a drug? So I made a decision then that I would become a non-drug doctor. I was the only non-drug doctor in the whole of South Africa, and I think I remained the only non-drug doctor for the rest of my career. I mean, in the early days, I did use some penicillin because obviously that's really powerful, and things like simple aspirin maybe for pain. But actually, I never went back to studying drugs and how to use them. I gave it up completely. The second thing that came to me was that I needed to give people something. And I didn't know much because, remember, I had given up medicine, so I never kept touch with the whole healing profession. I only knew two natural remedies. The one was kelp, which is seaweed, and the other one was brewer's yeast. Now, brewer's yeast is full of vitamin Bs, and kelp is full of minerals. So in a kind of way, in retrospect, I see there was an unconscious intelligence that was working over there. That was only two remedies I had. And the third thing that I did was I needed to find a diet. And I was given a diet sheet from a naturopath. It lived, a very famous naturopath in Cape Town. I was given that diet sheet, what he called his cleansing diet. And his cleansing diet was potato, onion, and green vegetables. That was a cleansing diet.
Okay.
So in the early days, I started to give all my patients this cleansing diet, kelp and brewer's yeast. And to my total astonishment, I mean, I was a regular doctor. Patients were getting better. Headaches were disappearing. Irritable bowel was getting better. Their discomforts, their blood pressure was getting better. And I couldn't understand what was going on. How come from brewer's yeast and kelp and a simple diet? Of course, you must understand where my practice was. It was up in the mountains. It was in a farming community. All the early patients that came to me were farm workers. And what did the farm workers eat in those days was junk food. They'd go to the store and buy white rice, white bread, packet of chips, tin food. That was the food they were eating. And I was putting them onto potatoes, onions, and greens, and brewer's yeast and kelp. And that was transforming people. They were actually getting better. I was curing them, and I couldn't believe what was happening to my practice. Within a couple of months, I was seeing 30 patients a day because all the people around started to come to me. So that was my early introduction to medicine, the recognition that you didn't need drugs. And then very quickly something else happened, and that was I was looking around for some modality that I could use, and I heard about acupuncture. And I went it was a weekend course, a Saturday and Sunday, to teach you how to do acupuncture. Obviously, you can't learn much, but anyway, it was, and sitting next to me, there was a homeopath. And he kept saying to me, you know, you don't need needles. And I would say to him, what do you mean I don't need needles? He says, no, you can use a laser. I said, a laser instead of needles? And he said, yes, of course you can use a laser instead of needles. And if you've got enough time, come and spend a day or two with me and I'll show you how to use the laser. It just so happened that I did have enough time. So I went his name was Peter Fraser. He was a homeopath. I went and spent a weekend with him. And in those early days, we had the lasers that were available were helium neon lasers. They were long black lasers with gas inside, very fragile. But they were a very pure laser. The light that came out, you could see the light. It was visible red, and a very, very pure point. You could shine the laser on a wall meters away and still see a point on the wall. And he was a funny guy because he said he was psychic. You could see the energy fields around the body. And he would sit on one end of the desk, the patient on the other end of the desk, and the patient would say, "Doctor, I've got pain over here." And he would shine the light from where he was. 2 meters away. The patient was 2 meters away. He would shine the light. And he said to me he could see the energy field. So he knew what the laser was doing. Just from and that was my introduction to lasers, was these neon helium lasers, a man shining a light. And he told me, by the way, you don't need to take the clothes off either. You can do it right through the clothes. And so that was my introduction to laser. He was going to France a week later, and he brought me back a laser. Within the first month of my acupuncture course, I had a laser in my hand. And for the first 2 years of my acupuncture practice, I never touched a needle. All I used was a laser to use the laser as an acupuncture tool, which was brilliant because I could do it on babies. People can't feel the laser. So that's how I started, and that's how I got into the laser, was because the first 2 years I had a laser tool to treat. So that was my beginning of my practice, was a non-drug doctor, brews yeast and kelp, and then the laser and acupuncture tools, which was very transforming. People loved the idea of a laser. So I started to collect from far away coming to see me as well, because I had a laser to treat them. That was the early days, because I had a laser in 1985 around. That's when I got my first laser. And there were no books.
Amazing. Bernard, did you feel at that time that somehow you were guided, by some invisible hand in, just meeting these people, going or this person, with the laser, then just founding your practice just because you felt that you need money, but then it transferred or it happened that actually it grew up into something much bigger than you were expected. People coming to see you, like 30 people a day. Did you feel some kind of a guidance, in your life leading you this way?
In the early days, I can't say that I was that way inclined, but I think that slowly over time, what do you call it? The things that started to happen to me were so astonishing. I mean, I didn't even tell you that. I mean, how did I get to Europe? Because I was in America, and we were sitting there one day, the two of myself and my girlfriend, we were sitting there complaining that we weren't making money from our art. And this guy walked in that we had met the day before in a coffee shop. And he says to me, "You two guys are looking very glum." I said, "Yeah, we artists and we're not making money." He says, "You must go to Europe. That's where the people make money. The governments pay artists." I said, "Yeah, but we had boats and cars, and what are we going to do with it all?" So he said, "How much do you think it's worth?" I can't remember what I said. $20,000, I said. He took out a checkbook, and he wrote me a check for $20,000. He said, "Now, next week, I want you to be gone." We left a week later. I don't know what, I didn't sign anything to anybody. We just left the cars there, the boats there. I don't know what happened to them. And that's how we got to Europe, from the money that this man gave us. My life has been like that all along the way.
So it was just a random guy that you met in the coffee shop.
No, random guy. It was a guy we met in the coffee shop the day before.
Amazing. So you went.
Yeah, I do trust. I trust in. I mean, my second book, which I'm writing now, is called The Art of Medicine, and that's really all about the great mystery, what I call the great mystery. So I live with the great mystery on my shoulder, one shoulder and the other side.
And you are listening very carefully to the great mystery, right?
Yeah, I know, absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing,
So,
amazing.
so when you talk about healing, the question is, where's the healing? Where does it come from? Where is the intelligence which is sitting behind if I asked you a question like, do you know how to lift your hand up? You probably will say, yes, I do. Then I'll say to you, well, how do you lift your hand up? Tell me the way you do it.
I'm just lifting my head up and up.
So you're asking some intelligence inside you that knows how your hand needs to be lifted up, knows the muscles to use, the nerves to use. You have no idea how to do it. Your thinking mind has no idea. So you connect to some intelligence inside you. Wow. I mean, that's amazing, isn't it? That there's an intelligence inside you that can answer when you want your hand to go up. Where's that intelligence? And that's my second book, is about the great mystery, or what I call the intelligence that's inside us. And the thing is that science has got there too. Quantum science has got there.
Mm-hmm,
Anyway.
mm-hmm. How do you understand that intelligence? Is that some kind of entity inside of us, or is that a sum of all the functions of the organism and the mind? Is that the functions of the organism and the mind and spirit, or how do you understand that intelligence?
So when I teach doctors what I call the greater anatomy, what is the greater anatomy? Greater anatomy is matter, energy, information, quantum potential, body, emotions, mind, spirit, consciousness. That's the greater anatomy. So I mean, quantum physicist Max Planck, who won the Nobel Prize for physics, he said, I've been examining matter all my life, and I can tell you one such thing: there's no such thing as matter. There's only energy information. That matter is energy information slowed down to the point where it becomes visible. So in one sense, the matter body is an illusion. Yeah, it is solid, but it's an illusion. It's not what you think it is. That's what an illusion is. Illusion doesn't mean that it's not there. Illusion means that you misunderstand what you're looking at. When you see a mirage, of course the mirage is there, but you mistake what you think it is. It's not real.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a real tree that you're seeing. So the body, in the same sense, is a bit of an illusion, because it's actually energy information. I mean, that's what happened. The question that you asked now is, what's inside? Well, that's what medical science started to do. They started to cut the body open, and they found more matter. They cut more matter up, and until eventually they found the atom. And the atom is not matter anymore. The atom is energy. And when you break the atom up, you come to particles. And
Mm-hmm.
particles are definitely not matter. So when medical science tried to find the building blocks of the body, what are the basic building blocks? They discovered atoms and particles, and the particles were not matter at all. There's no basic building blocks are not more matter. The basic building blocks are energy and information. And the interesting thing is that even the particles, you can't hold them, because they are energy information appearing and disappearing. They disappear constantly into what's called quantum potential and come out of the quantum potential. So in one sense, your whole body is appearing and disappearing in a fraction of a moment, disappearing into the quantum potential and coming out of the quantum potential. So you ask, where are the controls then? Who am I talking to when I ask my hand to go up? Well, that's an interesting question, is how deep do you want to go? I mean, obviously, biochemistry is not possible to be where the controls are. Biochemistry moves much too slow. Biochemistry moves centimeters a second. You've got billions of cells in the body, and every single cell has got millions of different processes happening every second. There's no way that biochemistry can possibly be where the controls are. So where are the controls? Well, we know that energy I mean, light energy moves at, 100,000 kilometers a second. That's fast. That's fast. So obviously the controls have to be, they're not in chemistry, much too slow. Well, at energy level, energy is moving much, much faster. The energy of light is astonishingly fast. But when we get to the quantum level, we move faster than the speed of light, even. So now we're talking about some kind of intelligence that's operating there, because all your particles disappear into the quantum potential and come out of the quantum potential in exactly the right space where they need to be. Something is able to control the way the particles come out of the quantum potential and create this matter body again in the same way as it was. That's where we're talking about controls, and how deep do you want to go. See, quantum potential is we can go there, because for me the quantum potential is just another name for God, by the way. So if you want to know who's in control.
Listening to what came up for me is that there is this saying that actually every day we are born again as a new person, and a lot of people take it like literally, like an expression.
Yes.
But you just actually you explained the background of it. I mean, it's really happening, and it's all happening every day and every morning. It's happening every moment, right? We are disappearing, our body, and then it's appearing again, and it's again actually put together by this from these particles, anew. So
absolutely, and so then you can ask, so how can we become ill? And that's an interesting question to ask. You see,
how do we become ill? What has been your observation and findings?
Why do we become ill if there is this incredible intelligence in the background? Because it's like when people become ill, let's say people who are deeply committed to God, to fundamental, they believe in God, they pray, and yet they get cancer. And then they say, well, what has God done here? I'm a religious person, I believe in God, I've done good work, and yet I'm ill. How can that be? Is that a question you're interested in?
I am very interested in this question, Bernard.
Okay. So to give you an answer, there is an answer that I can give you. And that is, if you take white light, perfect, pure white light, and you pass it through a lens, a red lens, it comes out red. And if that lens is distorted, then the light will come out distorted. So when those particles that are disappearing into the quantum potential and coming out of the quantum potential and then forming into shapes and into atoms and into the body, there are filters all along the way. And those filters, that's why in Chinese medicine, it's so beautiful, because in Chinese medicine, I mean, I'm a student of Chinese medicine. I used to teach acupuncture and Chinese medicine. The whole question of flow, opening up the flow, the qi, the energy to flow. That's the whole purpose of traditional Chinese medicine in some way, is to open the channels. And those channels become blocked, they become distorted, they become interfered with. All kinds of reasons for that. Not only physical reasons, but because, as I said, we are matter, energy, information. The distortion can be at the level of the information. The distortion can be at the level of energy. We got 5 Gs now. We got all kinds of energies. The distortion can be at the physical level. We can have injuries or whatever it is as well. So the distortions are along the way. The beginning, the life force which flows through constantly in the background gets distorted, and that's why we become ill. And so when you talk about mind, body, well, the mind is not matter. The mind is energy, information. So that's why you could say mind is such a big part of ill health, because the mind is a, let me call it, a much faster energy than body. Body is slowed down. Matter is energy slowed down to the point it becomes visible.
Yes.
So in one sense, for me, the most important areas to work with are at the level of energy information, which is the mind energy area. And that we need to just talk about at some point, is how to affect that. So for me, that's what I call the bigger anatomy: matter, energy, information, quantum, and body, emotions, mind, spirit. That's where the ill health is starting. That's why everyone knows that it takes 20 years to develop cancer. Why? Because it's starting at the informational level. Then it becomes energy, and then it becomes matter. So that's the process of ill health, starting at the level. In the same way as if you want your hand to go up, you first got to have the thought, then the hand goes up. The mind first.
So you say that there are, first of all, there are external energies and energies and vibrations that are disturbing the flow of the body coming together, or the energy actually rebuilding the body every moment. But then there is as well our own source of energy, which is our mind, which is as well disturbing the form. And you say basically that it's so fast because it's an energy. The thought is an energy, that it is much faster than actually the body, which is already a condensed energy. So it has a big influence on how the body behaves, how it lives, how all the processes go throughout the body. So the mind is a big factor in getting ill or being happy or being healthy.
Yes. And then you've got to understand the mind also. The mind is the trouble with words is that words are an amazing limitation. So when you use the word mind, or you use the word ego, or you use the word soul or God, these are words which are pointing to something. And we must be careful how we interpret that the place it's pointing to. So we all, the interesting thing for me is that we all use these words. That means that somewhere deep in us we understand that there's a difference between ego and soul, for example. Mm-hmm. So we all know that ego is something superficial, and that soul, we talk about the soul of a person, we talk about something more deeper, something more. So it's marvelous. It's amazing that we understand these things, but we use the words haphazardly a bit, and for me, words are very, very important. We need to be careful the words that we use, because the word we use has energy. And I watch it very carefully in my relationship with my partner, for example, how the word can stir up a reaction or stir up a healing. So one of the roles of a doctor is to be so careful with the words that they use, because those words can stimulate healing, and that's a placebo effect, or can actually cause serious harm, very serious harm.
I've been listening recently to a teacher. But he's a like mystical, or I don't know exactly how to call the way or what he has been lecturing, but it is the hidden knowledge in a way, and what he speaks about, you just touched upon that now, about the importance of how we use words. Because what he says as well is that the words are not only energy, but they are living beings, which actually have their own soul, and they, whenever we create that living being by just saying that word, it becomes, we are just not either polluting or somehow contributing to the environment we live in through the way how we speak. So I can resonate very much with what you are saying about the importance of how we use words.
Yeah,
because they create our reality, which is another expression which people are used to use and to say very lightly. Just like words create our reality, but few people actually realize how true this is, in fact.
Yeah, well, it's like, where is your reality? outside you or inside you? Well, the truth is that if you think about it, everything is filtered. Your reality is filtered by your eyes, your ears, so that your reality is happening inside your head. So the question is, how do you respond to what's happening inside your head? Because if you respond in a negative way, then you create ill health for yourself. So, I mean, we're so clever at blaming other people for my anger. No one can make you angry. You create your own anger because of what you're seeing. No one can make you unhappy. You create your unhappiness by the words you're using to describe what you're seeing inside your head. Because whatever you're looking at from the outside is passing through your eyes along nerve channels into the brain, and then it's upside down. The brain's got to even turn it the right way around, and then you see it. You're not seeing what's out there. You're seeing what's happening inside.
Yeah.
And you make a decision about what you're seeing inside you based on your philosophy of life, your point of view, your conditioning, and all that comes together to create this, what you call your reality. But it's yours, nobody else's. Don't blame anybody else. So that's why I always say you can choose to be an optimist or a pessimist, but it's stupid to be a pessimist because you're going to feel pessimistic. Why would you want to feel pessimistic? Because every cell in your body is going to be surrounded by the chemistry of pessimism. So you have no choice but to be an optimist, because if you're optimistic, you're going to be filled with the chemistry of optimism. Every single cell of your body is going to feel optimistic and is going to function much better than a cell surrounded by pessimistic chemicals.
Bernard, talking about all these view on what means to be healthy or to get ill, I've been wondering, what is then your approach? What have been your approach? I mean, you described about your early approach, and I guess it has still been within the same frames. But what has been your approach actually in helping patients? That's the wrong word. Helping people, clients, to get healthy when you see them.
Yeah, so I think that very early recognition that diet would make a difference, and that simple products could make a big difference. And the one thing that I also learned was to be able to listen and create what I call stories for people that made them feel better. So what I call Brom's rule number one when it comes to teaching the doctors, Brom's rule number one is change the patient's story, because people are coming in with bad stories. They've got a story of disease that's going to kill them. So the story that the doctors have given them are not what I call healing stories. So we need to find a way to shift the story around in such a way that people shift the ideas about what's happening to them, because otherwise you're disempowering people if you give them bad stories to take home. So for me, I can sometimes spend the whole of my first consultation trying to work with a patient, listening to them. Where do they come from? What is their basic philosophy? Are they religious? Are they believers? And what is really causing their disturbance in their family life? What is the relationship with the partner? I need to understand all that. And slowly we start this dance. We start to develop a story that suddenly shifts everything. That when the patient walks out, they got a smile on their face now, because suddenly they're seeing themselves totally differently. They're seeing the ill health as a journey, as a story that they're involved in. That the ill health is not something bad or something that they even something that it's something that's given to them as a gift, because they're not doing something right here. There's something that they need to change. They need to change their lifestyle, their diet, their attitude towards life. So for me, that is my first part of my consultation always, is to change the story, listen to the patient, and then transform their reality, because that's what I'm doing. to totally transform their reality so they can walk out of life and say, yeah, I'm ready to live life again. And this is what I need to do. So I'm very big on lifestyle changes. That's number one for me is the diet, the exercise, stress management, clearing your water up, and just the common stuff that everybody talks about, which we call lifestyle. I think that is the biggest area of healing that can happen. The trouble today is that the whole health field has become very confusing now. Like, which diet? Should I be doing a ketogenic diet? Should I be doing a high protein diet, a low carb diet, a fat free diet, Mediterranean diet? People are totally confused. And there's in a way good reason for that, because people that have cured themselves of the high fat diet are saying, look, I'm eating fat and I'm healthy. Look, all my illnesses have gone away. Other people are saying Mediterranean diet cured my diabetes. So what is the truth over there? It's no longer straightforward. I've been around such a long time now and seen all these diets come and go.
Yeah.
And the truth is that you got to find the diet that works for you. There isn't a diet. I mean, the thing that really got me was I wrote a paper on treatment of diabetes. And I was reading, some people were saying the ketogenic diet, and some people were saying low carb diet. And there was all these. And then I came across a report that the macrobiotic diet, which is based on yin and yang, if it comes out of Japan, that was the best diet, gave the best results of all in treating diabetes type 2. Now, macrobiotic diet is more than 50% carbs. When I saw that diet, when I saw that research, I said, I gave it all up, all the diets. I like, what I like best is the Mediterranean diet, because it allows you, I think the most important thing is good quality food. If you can have organic food, that's best. No junk food. I think the two big bad foods are refined oil. I think refined oil is seriously dangerous. If you know how refined oil is made, it goes through 14 different processes, because they got to produce an oil that will stay on the shelf for years. It has no smell and no taste, because you use it for cooking. So it's a massive and it gets, these oils are very sensitive. They get oxidized very easily. And now you've got an oxidized oil sitting in the kitchen without even not closed properly, in the heat of the kitchen. Oils for me are very seriously dangerous. I think they might be the most common cause of heart disease. And then, of course, all the refined foods, sugar is the other big one. And then I think for some people, dairy is not so good either. So, I mean, I in my what I call my cleansing diet today, I usually recommend to start off with a vegetarian diet, trying to use organic food as much as you can and eat any kind of vegetable you want. No problem at all. If you need to have a grain, you can add some rice, brown rice, but no other grains at all. And so that would be my diet, is find a diet that works for you. I like the Mediterranean diet because it's just mainly vegetables. And after a few months, you can start to add a bit of chicken and fish if you want to. But for the first few months, if you've got a serious chronic disease, please stay on a vegetarian diet. The vegetables are all herbal, full of nutrients and phytonutrients. So that would be my diet. Exercise is incredibly important. I mean, the human race has been running in the wild. Now we're sitting on chairs all the time. So I think exercise is very, very important. And then stress management is that's such a big one for me. And then sometimes simple. I mean, I usually, because my first consultation, I spend so much time just changing the patient's story, I can't even think then of a remedy for them. So I usually just give them simple things like vitamin D. I know that 85% of people are deficient in vitamin D. And vitamin D is no longer regarded as a vitamin. It's a hormone. It has a hormone-like properties in the body. Very, very important, vitamin D. And then omega-3, which I think is anti-inflammatory, really important. And then a good vitamin mineral supplement. I think if you just start on those 3 remedies, change your lifestyle. What are you doing when you're doing all that? And it's important to understand, because that brings us to what is integrative medicine, what is functional medicine. So the important thing to understand is that that's what really separates out the conventional medicine and holistic medicine, alternative medicine, integrative medicine, or traditional medicines. What separates out the two is that, so think of a motor car. When a motor car breaks down, something breaks down, and all you do is fix the part that's broken, and you don't do a tune-up, and you don't speak to the driver, that's bad mechanics. All you're doing is fixing the part that's broken, and you're sending the car out without doing a tune-up. That's the conventional medicine model, fixing the part that's broken and sending the patient out again. Haven't done a tune-up, haven't looked at the basic, haven't spoken to the driver about lifestyle, nothing like that. So medical doctors are mechanics. They fix the part that's broken and they send the patient out. Holistic medicine, alternative medicine, traditional medicines have all recognized that if you want to heal a person, not treat a person, but heal a person, you have to improve function. You have to do a tune-up. You have to speak to the driver about lifestyle. That makes it much more broader. So most integrative doctors will use drugs. I mean, I was a non-drug doctor, but most doctors still use drugs when appropriate. But the emphasis is on lifestyle changes and improving function. I mean, if 85% of people are deficient in vitamin D, and even in South Africa, where we have a lot of sunshine, I used to test everybody. Very few people had sufficient vitamin D. Vitamin D takes part in massive amount of biochemical processes. Magnesium takes part in 400 or 300 metabolic processes. Selenium takes part in 30 metabolic processes. Well, if there's any deficiency there, the body is now having to look around, where can I get this and that in order to compensate for this deficiency and that deficiency? The body needs enormous amount of nutrients. Your liver has 2 phases, and during phase 1, it's using up massive amount of nutrients. Phase 2 needs another. So constantly, from moment to moment, the body needs remedies. So that's why, for me, and there's always this argument, if I have good diet, is that not enough? Not today. Not today. Food today is deficient. It's not like it used to be. Food is nutritionally deficient. It's poisoned, got lots of poisons. And all the poisons that you take, I mean, the water that people drink has got chlorine. Well, chlorine, why is chlorine there? Chlorine destroys the microorganisms, the microbiome. Interferes with that. So there's all kinds of pollution today. The body needs much more nutrients than it used to in order to deal with all these, to detoxify itself. So yeah, so that's the role that integrative medicine plays. It's the role of supporting function, improving function. That's all we do, is how do we improve function, because the body has to do the work. It's not the remedies. There's no remedies that do the work. All you're doing is you're feeding the body with the nutrients it needs, in the same way as you put wood into a fire. You got to put nutrients into the body. The body's got the intelligence to do what it has to do, but you got to feed it. So lifestyle management, nutrients where necessary, and then even things like acupuncture and laser therapy. Or what are they doing? All they're doing is improving function. They don't treat the disease, they're improving function. And that brings up an interesting question around, let's say, anti-inflammatories. What's the difference between a natural anti-inflammatory and a drug which is an anti-inflammatory? Is there any difference? There's a massive difference. First of all, the way the drugs work is to block the process. So they interfere with inflammation because they want to. Inflammation is the body's way of healing, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
If you injure
Right.
yourself, it's inflammatory, but that's how body heals. Anti-inflammatories interfere with that. A natural anti-inflammatory helps the inflammatory process of the body to complete itself more effectively. Like it's coming from a different direction. A natural anti-inflammatory is supporting function. A drug is interfering with function. So there's a massive difference between what's called a natural anti-inflammatory and a drug anti-inflammatory, as it applies to laser as well. The lasers aren't treating the inflammation. They're helping the body to manage the inflammation better. Big difference.
But I think that's actually mirroring where the whole world is today in terms of how we see life. And we are just used and focused on seeing just the superficial, just to accept what we see with our eyes. So and not to try to go deeper and beyond the face value, because when there is an inflammation in the body on my finger and I see there is inflammation, there is a wound, the only thing I want actually is to see it again healthy, again renewed as it was before. So
Yes.
the quickest way how to do it, I'm taking anti-inflammatory drug. So the process is stopped. I see that there is no more red or wound there, so everything is fine. But basically, what you say is the other approach is helping the process so that the body can really do the healing, and not any threats to stay behind, which actually are not healed, but I'm not seeing them. They are somewhere inside the body, and then it's somehow growing and growing and growing until something much more serious appears than it was at the beginning. So I think that's because one of my questions to you was, what is the prevalent mindset of people today that keeps them away from being healthy and being happy? And for me, that's partially one of the questions. It is just looking very superficially on life and just not going beyond beyond the face value of things, digging deeper and trying to see that there is much deeper picture, even to where we started. Just seeing that there is no matter as such, and then trying to treat the body and disease much deeper than actually just stopping the what we feel with drugs. But what are your other observations in terms of the prevalent mindset of people today that are keeping them away from being happy and healthy?
I think that what comes up for me is the question of the sacredness of life. We've lost our ability to see the sacredness because we see so superficially. So we see everything as a matter object. And that matter object has taken us away from depth. We no longer see deep. We see superficially. So we don't see, we see the outer surface of things. So, for example, let me think. So take a plant, for example. When I go walking in the wilderness over here, I mean, when I see a flower, I'm astonished. It opens my heart up. I feel, wow, for me, it's like the face of God that I'm looking at. So we've lost that ability to see wonder, to be awed by the world around us. The world has become machine-like. We've turned the human being into a machine model. We use the machine model to try and understand human beings and reality. And that's a great mistake of the so-called old science, what we call the Newtonian science, the billiard ball science, where everything is predictable. But that's the old science. The quantum science has changed everything. I mean, I've got a book written by 20 quantum scientists. It's called Mind Over Matter. No, Mind Before Matter. Mind Before Matter. This is quantum scientists. How did quantum science come to this? Because quantum science recognizes there's an observation that the act of observing changes what you observe. That's quantum science. The very act of observing changes what you observe. They've shown this in experiments now, that when a scientist is actually involved in watching the experiment, they get one result. When he's not watching, they get a different result. And that's the way photons operate. At the level of photons, at the level of particles, they respond to awareness, to the act of observing. So we've lost that as human beings. Traditional people, when they walked in nature, for them, nature was sacred. We've lost that sacred feeling. So we destroy everything. We burn the jungles down, the Amazon down. We no longer have a respect for nature in the way that people had. We don't ever have respect for our bodies. And we've lost respect for our bodies in such a way that the body has become a machine that we can put all kinds of instruments inside it and tear it apart, cut it up and open it up and replace it, artificial limbs. And I'm not saying there's no place for that. Please get me right. I'm not saying there's no place for that. There is a place for it. But it should come with a different mindset, a different honoring of the body, a different... Yeah, the word sacred is the best word for me. Is I have enormous, because I understand this great mystery that is surrounding us. It's deep within us somewhere. My second book is all about the art of medicine, because I define medicine as an art that uses science to measure what can be measured, but most things about human beings can't be measured. We can't measure mind, we can't measure thinking, we can't measure emotions, we can't measure soul, spirit, none of that. So there's no way that medicine can be a pure science. It's dealing with the unknown constantly, but it has reduced the unknown to the known and made the model, the machine model, which is the old model. That's the Newtonian model. Quantum science has gone past that. Quantum science says you can't measure the particle and the wave properties at the same time, for example. There's always the unknown. You can never know everything at the same time. It's impossible. Quantum science says that. And the mere act of observing changes what you observe. So please be careful the way you look at your own body and the way you look at people around you. You know, if you look at what's happening in the world today, wars everywhere. Why? Because we're seeing other people as enemies. That's not okay. That's not okay. And especially even when they bring religion up into it, you know, there's only one God, and there's only one love, one unconditional love. There aren't hundreds of different kinds of unconditional love. There's only one unconditional. So for me, we've lost it all. We've lost the plot. We're destroying the planet. We've lost. We just know we've lost the sense of sacredness. And for me, the practice of medicine is absolutely sacred, because we're dealing with other human beings that are, when I look at another human being, if I can see the face of God in that human being, you know, then I've gone deep enough. But if I can't see the face of God, I'm still not deep. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so that for me, medicine is a sacred art. Is a sacred profession. We need to bring it back. It always was a sacred profession, and we've lost it somewhere along the way.
I think so.
Yeah,
Bernard, you mentioned lasers. I wanted to delve in a little bit deeper into your experience with lasers, because where we got to was that you started using lasers at the time for instead of needles for acupuncture. But I know that
yes.
you've went much further beyond that, and you've went into the field of low-level laser or photobiomodulation, is it called as well? What has been your background in this field, and what has been your experience? Because I got to know as well that you in a certain way, are the father of low-level laser therapy in South Africa. So you have been pioneering very much in that field. So what has been your journey with low-level laser?
So as I said, I started with using the low-energy laser as an acupuncture tool. And I thought that that's what it was. I mean, there were no textbooks or anything like that at all around for me. But then accidentally, I started to just notice that I was using the laser sometimes on areas that weren't acupuncture points, and that it seemed to me that the laser was having other kind of effects that I hadn't thought about. And so once that started to happen, being the kind of person I am, I started to use the laser on everything that came my way. If somebody said to me, "Doctor, I've got this condition, can you help me?" I said, "Yes, let's try the laser." So I started to use the laser on all kinds of conditions that came up. If there was a lump, I'd use it there. If there was a pain, I'd use it on pain. If a patient had something in their mouth, I'd use the laser in their mouth. So I started to use it everywhere, and then started to realize that the laser was having two separate kind of effects to me. One was an acupuncture effect, which was interesting in itself, because people often would say that the needles cause pain, and that's why it works. But the laser acupuncture causes no pain at all. You can't even feel that you're doing a treatment. So I realized that the whole question of acupuncture was interesting enough now for me too. It wasn't just a needle effect. Because the laser, without any sensation, was still producing the same results. And then there was a laser effect that didn't seem to have anything to do with acupuncture points, that I was using it just locally. And so then I started to use it on a lot of different conditions, and even before I got my first textbook on the laser, I had already developed my own particular way of using the laser.
Mm-hmm.
That I called laser treatment in its own right. It had nothing to do. So often I would only do laser and not even use the acupuncture points. I just did the laser. And so that's where I developed a lot of experience in using the laser, and I would get miracles. I mean, it was amazing to me, because I would see. I mean, when you're seeing 30 patients a day or 20 to 30 patients a day, and you're doing the laser at least 5 patients a day, I was seeing 2 or 3 miracles a week. And what do I mean by a miracle? A miracle is that a patient walks in with a back pain and walks out without any pain at all, and he can suddenly move. And that was within the first treatment. That's a miracle. Or if a patient has a frozen shoulder and walks out without a frozen shoulder, that's a miracle. Now, it wasn't that every case was a miracle, but when you're doing a lot of cases, like I did 30 or 40 cases a week with the laser, and you're seeing 2 or 3 miracles a week, that's totally transforming. It changes everything that you think about, because needles are like a physical thing pushing into the body. That's one thing. But laser, when the patient can't even feel anything, and my scientist friends who were first engineers were telling me that, "Come on, Bernard, the laser's too weak to do anything." My first laser was 1 milliwatt. 1 milliwatt. They said, it'll never penetrate into the body.
Yeah.
But I was the one having the experience, and I knew that it was penetrating into the body, into the abdomen. I mean, one of the miracles that I remember was a lady who came to me with adhesions in the abdomen. She had a cesarean section for a baby delivery, and she developed adhesions, and they had to open her up and cut the adhesions because she couldn't stand up straight. They did 4 operations with her over the course of a year or 2. The adhesions kept coming back, and she walked into my office totally bent over like that. She couldn't stand up straight. A young woman, she couldn't stand up straight at all. And she said to me, "Doctor, can you treat me?" I said, "I have no idea. Let's try the laser." I never treated the adhesions before. I tell you, by the time The fifth, she was coming from Cape Town, which is a good hour's drive, long drive for her. And we only treated her once a week. By the time she's had 5 treatments, she was standing up and walking and totally normal. I still to this day don't understand it. What happened to those adhesions? The laser, I don't believe, melts adhesions away. I think it might have softened the adhesions so that they weren't so tight, and that maybe in softening the adhesions, the bowels could move around a bit better, and she was able to stand up. There was a second patient with the same condition, also helped. But that's deep, eh? We're talking now, and we're not talking about a few millimeters, we're talking about centimeters. So I know that the laser can penetrate deep. And I think I have seen studies to show that people using plates behind and a laser behind where they can detect photons, they pick the photons in the back plates where they took photographs. So I think it does penetrate. It does penetrate deep, much deeper than. And in my understanding, what happens is that the photons fill up the cell, and then the cell passes the photons to the next cell, and like an avalanche effect. And the photons keep getting passed deeper and deeper. I think that's what happens, because, I mean, it is a mystery, to be quite honest, because the engineer says that the moment the light penetrates the skin, it's going to dissipate all over the show. So while it's one focused when you look at it, but once it goes into the body, there's different densities, and the light's going to go all different directions. My feeling is, Michael, that they don't understand what's happening here. I don't think that the laser works on the physical matter. It's working on the energy body, in the same as in acupuncture needles. We be putting them into the body, and we think they're working on the body on the matter level. That's not what the Chinese said. They said energy meridians. So
that's exactly my feeling as well. As you were talking, that it's the way that scientists and these technologies actually have been looking at it is the materialistic way. So sure. Yeah. I mean, it has just a few millimeters of penetration, then it disappears. With commune therapy, with the delta laser, I've been getting this question so many times. So how deep it penetrates? Well, like, I don't know, on 5 hertz, they say it's maybe 5 centimeters, 7 centimeters. Well, I mean, it's too weak, to penetrate that deep. Yes, but that's not the way how it operates anyway. It is through the receptors, and which it's this cascade effect that you mentioned. So it influences, the receptors on the skin, which then transmits the information down there through a cascade to the places where actually the information needs to get to. So it's a completely different approach.
I think the lasers to the body, the body is transparent to the laser. If you could see the energy body, as some people have, and some people have photographed it, and some people have drawn it, there's an energy body which is called the etheric body. And that etheric body is sitting there. So for the laser, I don't think the laser has a problem with the matter body, because it's not working on the matter body. It's working on I think the etheric body, and because it's sometimes the results are so immediate. They're so immediate. Sometimes, like within 5 seconds, I've seen results happen within 5 seconds. So the pain is gone, and I'm thinking, no, this is not physical anymore. It can't be. It has to be working at what is operating at the fastest level is energy. As I keep saying, matter is slow. There's no way that matter can is much too slow. We're talking about energy, and I think the laser is working at that level.
Well, at the end of the day, going back to where we started our discussion, and you mentioning now the etheric body, disease as such actually appears on the energetic level, right? So it appears in the etheric body, and only then it transforms or crystallized into the matter. So it makes completely sense that the laser works on a different level, on energetic level, where the things happen extremely quickly.
Exactly.
But I'm also wondering, how does the thinking of people who are somehow skeptical to laser influences the process, because we talked about the mind body connection and how quick and strong could be the thought. So I can imagine as well people being skeptical, just blocking the process as well.
No, that's absolutely true, and that's why I always say, that I hope that you get that doctors who buy the laser get a result with their first patient, because that's what happened to me. My first patient, I had a total miracle. It was a man with a frozen shoulder, and at the end of the treatment, his hand was free. And I thought, oh wow, look how easy it is. But once I saw that was enough. It's like, how many swans do you have to see, that are black to know that swans can be black? So it's like that. If you can get a good result to start off with, it shifts everything, and the skeptic doesn't realize that they are creating realities which are not the best options for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true, the observer and what is observed are connected, So, and look, I've written a paper on the power of prayer. I mean, prayer, that means that somebody one end of the world can influence a person at the other end of the world. Well, that's not matter. That's instantaneous. We're talking about quantum, and at the level of the quantum, it's explainable, because the quantum, there are laws which apply to the instantaneous movement of molecules. It's called Bell's theorem. It's actually got a theorem attached to it. Yeah.
You've been writing your second book now. How far you are with that book, The Art of Medicine?
The book is finished. My wife is doing the editing at the moment. So I wrote the last chapter about 6 months ago.
Okay.
And then I wrote, a month after that, I wrote the final chapter. And then a month later, I wrote the final chapter. And then I thought I was finished. And then I wrote another chapter called But What Was There in the Beginning? Then I thought I was finished. And then I finished off with the last chapter, which was called And What Was There Before the Beginning?
All right. So when the publishing is planned for? When do you think?
Yeah, I hope so. I've got to find a publisher still.
Okay.
But the book is really about my journey and about my experience and what I'm doing, and because for me, life is magical. And for me, there's, I started a society last week. It's called the Society for the Exploration of the Unknown and the Unknowable.
Amazing.
So that's where I am. For me, it's I don't need answers anymore, because I know that answers are not exciting. They stop you. I like asking questions, and the questions keep taking me deeper.
I can see that.
But the laser is really an astonishing tool. I call it doctor in a box, because you can use it for anything in your family. You can use it on babies, you can use it on children, and it's a very special tool, totally safe to use.
It's non-harmful, non-harmful. No side effects.
No side
We're
effects.
not working with the side effects here.
But okay. You're talking about side effects. There is one thing that comes up for me when you talk about side effects, is that people can faint, by the way. And it's very, very, very unusual. When you're doing acupuncture, you see it much more often, because people have a vasovagal response to sometimes the needles in their body. But the interesting thing is that I've had, in over 30 years, I've had 2 patients that have fainted. And that's been fascinating for me, because, again, it's telling me that this is not a physical thing. The energy gets, and it's not just in one space, it's the energy gets, the whole body is an energy field. And putting the laser just anywhere has an influence on the whole energy field. So in some people, it's not even serious, because all you do is get them to lie down and they recover very quickly. But it's interesting to me that it can have that effect as well, and points to the massive shifting that can happen in the body with the laser.
Bernard, on that note, what would be your closing message to all listeners that would like to embark on a new road or new path to health and longevity? You know, people who have been, let's say, suffering a lot, and there has been no help through the traditional medicine or conventional medicine. What will be your message to them? Where to look for help?
Look, I mean, if they can find an integrative doctor, then that would be the best. But the point is that people need to recognize that the doctor is inside them, that the body wants to heal, that ill health is not something that the body doesn't know what's happening. Ill health is the best the body can do under the circumstances in that moment. So the ill health is what I call the voice of health. I'm going to repeat that. Ill health is the voice of health. Listen to the voice and respond to that voice, because the body is asking for help, and you need to be intelligent enough what to do. Most of the time, it's a question of changing your story, getting a positive, optimistic, loving, awesome story, changing your diet, exercise, and just simple things like that, and become more, recognize the sacredness of the body. Bring those qualities into your life. And in the end, it's actually quite simple. You can add some omega-3, and you can add some vitamin D and some good vitamin mineral supplements. You have everything that you need to do the healing work that you want. The body's talking to you. Your ill health is the voice of health. It's not something bad happening. It's a voice. It's like a musical orchestration that's suddenly woken up and saying, come on, let's do something together.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bernard. Dear listeners, Dr. Bernard Brom was our guest today. Bernard, thank you very much for being our guest. Amazing discussion.
Pleasure, anytime. Love talking about the subject.
Yeah, absolutely. I can feel that. I can feel that. So rich discussion. Really, I'm very thankful for being able to discuss all these things to you and to listen to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anytime. Okay, take care.
Yes, dear listeners, thank you very much for staying with us till the end of the podcast. If you want to listen to some of our previous episodes, you can find them on all major podcast platforms. You can find them as well on our YouTube channel, which is Comrade Therapy or Radiant Life Technologies. You'll find all the links down in the description under the video, as well as you will find in the description as well links to Dr. Brom's website, where you can read more about him and his work, and as well, I believe, find a way where you can buy his book, which is, remind me the name, Bernard?
A Healthy Medicine.
A Healthy Medicine.
Amazon will have it.
And from Amazon.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bernard. Thank you very much again, and have a nice rest of the day.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye bye.